following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
Downers, 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 you beautiful, crazy downers. Hello and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of The System is Down, where every week we discuss the undiscussable and embrace all things uncomfortable. Before we jump in, I'd like to shamelessly plug all my show garbage and say, go subscribe and review the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and the like. Check out our website at tsidpod.com, like us on Facebook at /The System is Down, and join our increasingly uncomfortable forum conversation at tsidpod.com/forum. On this episode, Craig and I attempt to blow the lid off a conspiracy theory that is rapidly growing in popularity, the Mandela Effect. I'm not sure if we did the best job at the top of the show explaining the theory that we're referencing, so for those that don't know, in a nutshell, the Mandela Effect is 1,001 cases of memories that seem to be changing. Are they really changing? Who's changing them? And can we debunk this crazy theory? That and more, coming soon. Right now, let's get weird. My guest today, once again, is Craig Smolt, my brother. Craig, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, no problem.
Craig, today we're talking about the Mandela Effect, something that I'm sure you are well versed in.
Very much so.
I want to start off with a little test, a little game, maybe. This might be the shortest episode ever because we might be able to completely debunk this entire conspiracy in the next 30 seconds. Are you ready?
All right. Sure, let's do it.
All right. It's time to play. Craig, what did you have for dinner last night?
It's a good question. Hold on. It's all coming back to me very slowly. Last night, I had mac and cheese, and that is it.
Very manly answer.
Wait, I had some fresh bread with that too.
So what you're saying is your memory is a little bit fuzzy, and you're not completely sure if you had fresh bread or not.
I am sure now, but it took me a few seconds to come up with that answer.
But you see my point.
Yes.
For those who don't know, the Mandela Effect is basically a lot of people remember. It started with people remembering Nelson Mandela having died in prison in the 80s, and he actually died on December 5th, 2013, which is 3.5 years ago rather than 30 years ago, like everybody thinks. Have you had a chance to look into... I mean, if you look up the Mandela Effect, you're going to find page after page after page of things that people remember or don't remember in different ways.
Yeah, I've looked a little into it. I've seen a couple of the instances, and some of them, honestly, I actually thought were my memories. So I could see how I really don't know how to get into it because they're just such minor things, like the ones that they're hitting on the most are like the spelling of the Berenstain Bears, or they talk about the...
that is the trophy one that everybody knows.
Yeah, yep. Well, that's honestly one that I remember being spelled the wrong way, apparently, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, so when I read that one, I'm like, no, it's definitely spelled this way. Everyone else is wrong. And then I realized, wait, I'm on the wrong side of the argument, apparently. And I thought I was on the right side.
So you remember it being EIN?
I do.
Yeah. I specifically remember reading those books as a kid, and I remember reading the name and not knowing how to pronounce it. Is it Berenstein or is it Berenstein?
Yeah.
Like, which Jewish name is it? If it's
Jewish Bears.
If it's AIN, then I don't think I would have questioned it. It's Berenstain. Like,
yeah.
That is...
Well, I actually remember people calling it Berenstein.
Yeah.
Berenstain Bears, like mispronouncing it Berenstein Bears.
Yeah, Berenstein, Berenstein, Berenstain. You never really knew which one it was. So, that is one. And going into this, like, for all conspiracies, I try to approach them. The best way to prove a conspiracy is to try and debunk it. And if you look hard and deep, you could probably debunk all of them. But this one, you can't really do a whole lot of debunking on because it's all just he said, she said, what I remember, what you remember. There's not going to be any resolution to this this theory, no matter how long we talk and how blue in the face we get. There's no way to say, if I think that it's Berenstain and you think it's Berenstein, we can argue about it all day long, and then which one of us is going to go, oh, actually you're right. Based on your memory, I agree with you.
Well, you hear about you remember the movie Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal?
Yes.
You heard about
Sinbad? Shazam?
Yeah, everybody remembers the Shazam movie where Sinbad is a genie. Like, there's like thousands of people coming out of the woodwork saying they remember the video, like the cover of the video, and I don't remember this myself personally. I don't know. Do you?
I don't remember it at all. No, I remember Kazam. I loved that movie.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites.
And even Sinbad doesn't remember this movie. He tweeted.
Well, that's part of the cover-up.
Well, Sinbad tweeted that he's offering $5,000 to anyone who can find a genie movie that he starred in. So he is, well, he's in our universe apparently, but
he's pretty confident that this never happened.
Yeah. I did find, however, there was a TV special on TNT back in, I don't know, the early 90s or something, where Sinbad dressed up as a genie, and it was kind of around the same time as Kazam. So maybe they remember seeing Sinbad as a genie and never watched Kazam, didn't watch it weekly like I did, and remember it incorrectly. Or maybe they're all racist and think all black people look alike. I don't know.
That's possible. That's definitely... I'm going to have to go with that one. I didn't even think about that, but...
I mean, I didn't even have that thought until today, but just getting two black people mixed up who look almost nothing alike and thinking that... My question is, and I would like to talk to somebody who remembers this Sinbad movie. My question is, do they remember Kazam? Do they remember the Shaquille O'Neal one? Or did it completely take the place of that?
Maybe it happened in an alternate universe that they were part of, and we remember it with Shaquille O'Neal. Or maybe the Shaquille O'Neal one just never happened. And maybe we're
I had
the
the
ones
Shaquille O'Neal one. It happened.
So what people say, and you kind of mentioned earlier, is how this happens. The explanation behind it is that people vaguely remember one thing, and they remember like a little point. Like, say people do remember the movie Kazam, and they do have vague memories of Sinbad playing this genie on this 90s little clip.
Right.
Well, then other people start saying, hey, I remember this, and then they just start to piece their memories together the way the person's story seems to go. It's just they don't actually remember it, but their brain's piecing it together because they do remember seeing him in a genie costume or even like a Arab costume or something, and then just remembering pieces of Kazam movie, they just start putting the pieces together in their head, not intentionally, not like they're trying to make stuff up, but their brains just filling in the works for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm not a denier of this theory. I think that one person remembers something differently because they were told that, and then they post it on YouTube, and then all the other people who are Mandela Effect people share that, because whether or not they remember it, they're using somebody else's memory as evidence, and then those people share it on YouTube, and so like it just snowballs into this was a thing, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh yeah, I remember it that way too. I don't think it's that way for all of them. I think there's some very interesting ones and very strange things, like, well, Berenstein. Don't even know where to go with that one, but
yeah,
a lot of people saying that it's CERN making parallel universes or something, or time travelers going back and altering time and everything,
or the government covering up things. Why would they cover little things like that up though?
If you're a hardcore conspiracy guy, don't want to lose you here because we're being too negative on this one, but for one thing, if it was time travel, people from the future going back and changing a couple things for God knows why, how can we remember it the way it was? And why didn't it change our memory?
Yeah, why do we remember both memories?
even if it's parallel universes. I don't claim to be a scientist or somebody who even can wrap my brain around the idea of parallel universes, but how come in a parallel universe some people are... What happened there? Did people cross over to another universe, or... I just don't understand.
One of the ones, another minor one that I personally debunked myself, actually for myself, was, have you heard the Looney Tunes one?
Is it just the spelling?
The spelling, Looney Tunes is Tunes, and everyone remembers it as, like, Tunes, cartoons, Toons. That's what everyone...
Yeah.
claims that is how it was spelled, and I've looked into it, and I couldn't explain it, because I thought I remembered to spell Toons too. My explanation, and I think this debunks all of it, especially for kids. Yes, Tiny Toons debunks it all. Tiny Toons was spelled Toons, and honestly, I watched more Tiny Toons as a child than I did Looney Tunes because of our age group. So I think it's probably more people like around our age group that probably remember the Tiny Toons, which was the small version of the Looney Tunes. But for some reason, they decided to change the name for the Tiny Toons.
That is actually something I didn't even think about until you brought it up. Because I've looked at the Looney Tunes, I'm like, it doesn't look right. But I didn't watch that much Looney Tunes. I did watch Tiny Toons.
I watched a lot of Tiny Toons, very little Looney Tunes. So
right. On the Berenstain Bears deal, apparently there was a Reddit user who found an old VHS tape that had Berenstain spelled with an E on the side on the front label of the VHS, not the actual top bold label, but it was there, and there's a picture of it, which...
I'm still not buying it.
Which could be Photoshop, could be a typo. Seems a lot more likely that it's a typo. Doesn't change the fact that I remember it otherwise.
Yeah, because we had a bunch of books. Like, I remember having the books.
I still have them for my kids.
Have you gone back to look just to double check?
Yep, they're all A.
That's crazy, because then a part of me wants to think that maybe, because I also remember thinking, I remember thinking that it should be BAR, not BER.
Right.
For Berenstain when I was a kid. So then part of me is thinking, hey, maybe that's my mind putting AIN and like
I was
changing
typing out some notes today, and I typed it out as BEAR. So is that another Mandela effect?
No, that's just
or do we just
bear.
not know?
That's just because it was a bear. You're thinking bear.
I know, and that would make sense as the name.
But I remember it being BER, but thinking it should have been BAR because I was a child, and that's how my mind worked. But I still very much, for some reason, remember EIN.
Yes.
That is my memory.
Yeah, and then that one in particular is not just in the conspiracy sphere. Like, I've heard a lot of people on YouTube that are trying to debunk this, calling it a psyop, like psychological operation, where whatever, people put out misleading information to try and get people's attention off the truth, quote unquote. Doesn't really make any sense, because this particular conspiracy is not limited to the conspiracy people, the quote-unquote conspiracy nuts. Like, I literally had this experience. I was walking through our local festival, which is a rhubarb festival here in town. You
might have to explain to people what rhubarb is before you go into it.
It is either a fruit or a vegetable that tastes terrible and does not have any real beneficial value to anyone's life, but we have a festival all about it, and people travel from all over the state of Illinois to come to this for some stupid reason. But
it's a big deal.
Yeah. I was walking through this festival, and I walked past a guy and his wife or girlfriend, and he was talking to her about this conspiracy. And all I heard was, is it Berenstain or Berenstain? AIN or EIN? And they were talking about it, and I was just walking by, and I walked up behind him over his shoulder, and I was like, it's Berenstain. It's the Mandela Effect. It's a conspiracy. And he just looked at me weird, and I kept walking. Like, this is not just limited to crazy people.
See, that one alone gets me more than any of the other ones. Like, it bothers me. It really does. Like, all the rest I think can be debunked, but I think the Berenstain Bears one just brings the Mandela Effect back into the world of me believing it.
Right.
Because
exactly.
See, what I've definitely read on other issues, I don't know if I've read it necessarily on the Mandela Effect, but I could see it, is that, I mean, this is obviously going way into the crazy side of conspiracy, but they change little things. They, who knows who that is, the government, the Illuminati, who cares, change little things to see how they can manipulate like our thinking or make us think one way when in reality is the other way, or just slight mind altering. So just little things like that is just like a slight step towards mind altering or mind manipulation or manipulation of thought. Just
like testing.
Just
testing
a little test.
See what we'll take.
Exactly, and it's little things like that, and they companies do it in like commercials. They do like throwing like subliminal messaging to see how they can manipulate your brain and thinking that you need something or want something when you never really wanted it to begin with. Yeah. And so I think it's possible that maybe, I mean, I'm not saying it is, but there is a possibility. Hey, maybe this is just one little step into, hey, let's see what we can do here. Yeah.
The problem is that you can look at this from so many different angles that it gets really convoluted. Like you can look at it from the spiritual angle because there's supposedly scripture biblical scripture that has been altered and different things in our society that point toward it being evil forces or whatever. And then you can look at it from the Illuminati or CERN and the government and all that. And it just depends on which brand of conspiracy nut you are that you interpret it different ways, which is kind of a problem with it, that you can't put any clear reasoning on it. A couple of the others, well, I mean, there's so freaking many. Queen's song, We Are the Champions. How do you think that song ends? Does it end with We Are the Champions of the World at the end?
You see, I'm not going to be able to answer this accurately because I'm a huge Queen nut, so I've listened to like every live rendition of the song possible, and I listen to the live renditions more than I do the actual recording rendition. So to me, it ends of the world because, or a lot of times he ends it live, just We Are the Champions, and then it just fades off into nothing.
Yeah.
And so for me, I haven't listened to the actual recording in forever, so I have no idea.
Sure. My wife and I were talking about this, and she absolutely remembered it ending with Of the World. And I had this song back when the Bulls were winning the championships and stuff. I had that song on a CD and listened to it all the time. And I absolutely remember it ending with We Are the Champions. I did a little bit of digging today and found that apparently there was an extended version of the song where he sings Of the World and holds it out, and it gets all shaky and dramatic and Freddie Mercury like. So stuff like that, it's both. You're not right. You're not wrong either.
Like I said, there's so many live versions of it. Depends on which one you listen to. Yeah. And if you're a casual listener and didn't like listen to it in a bunch of different settings, like, you're used to hearing the end of that chorus being with Of the World, and it fades out at the end of the chorus before the verse comes back in. So logically, your brain would probably assume that the song ends the same way if it ends with We Are the Champions. Yeah. I don't know if you've looked back into that album, or went back and looked if you still have that album. It wouldn't surprise me if you did.
Oh, the Bulls one?
Yeah.
I do have it.
That one possibly did end We Are the Champions because the whole theme was surrounding the fact that they were like 6-time champions.
Right.
And that's so they might have cut it out there just to end on that note so that stuck out in your head versus Of the World because the key point was the champions part. So
yeah, I haven't looked in depth enough to find out if this is for sure the case, but my guess would be there's a radio version that doesn't want him holding out that note ridiculously long after the music cuts out, and then there's the album version where they did what they wanted, and some people heard it one way, some people heard it the other way, so you remember it both ways.
Yeah.
There's another, some people are remembering, well, how many states are there in the United States?
Right now, currently, there are 50 states.
Okay, some people are remembering 51 or 52.
They're full of crap.
I know. And there's been speculation on why some people remember 51 or 52. The best explanation, I would say, is how many people can name all of them, for one. How many people know how many countries there are, how many continents there are even, how many oceans there are. A lot of people don't know or care to know until it comes into a conspiracy discussion, giving people the benefit of the doubt that think that there are 51 or 52. My guess is that your brain thinks about the United States as the continental United States. And your brain keeps hearing that there are 50 states in the United States. And then when it comes up, you think about Alaska and Hawaii, and you're like, oh, it's 52. Or maybe you're thinking of, maybe the people who think 51 are thinking the continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do remember speculation that Puerto Rico was trying to become a state, and people talked about there would be 51 states. And then also on top of that, Washington, D.C. is its own entity, so if you were to look at something and group everything, all the governments together, Washington, D.C. would be like the 51st entity of a government.
Right.
And so, I mean, that I just don't know how people can think that, hey, I remember that. I do remember speculation of it, but I also remember a song that I listened to a lot as a child,
I know the
6
one.
years old.
I thought of it today.
Singing 50 States of America, 50 States, the land I love.
The land I love, yes.
Yes. That is my anthem that I sing every day.
When I was going through some of this stuff today, I was like, I don't even question it, because I've had that jingle in my head ever since I was a kid, and it goes through all 50 states.
I'm surprised you honestly remember it, because I was young. There was that, and there was the Mississippi song, and they went through a trip. It was it was a cassette tape story of this people taking a trip to the United States. So they talked about all these states.
For those of you who are too young to remember what a cassette tape was, your opinion on the Mandela Effect means nothing to me.
Because you can't even say you don't even remember any of the stuff we're talking about.
And now we're just ostracizing ourselves from younger audiences because we're insulting their credibility based on their age.
I remember cassette tape spinning the backwards, not forwards.
I remember it doing both if it flips over.
Well, I remember one would spin one way and the other would spin the other.
That's impossible, because then it would rip it apart in the middle. I'm not sure if you're joking. I'm going to
definitely
hope that
joking.
you are.
Definitely poking at the Mandela Effect. Do you have any knowledge background in the actual Nelson Mandela Effect? I haven't looked too deep into that. I just know what you basically said, that people found out or thought that they heard that he died in the 80s in prison, but now he died 4 years ago, and that's what sparked all this controversy.
Yeah, to be honest, until I started looking into the Mandela Effect, which was probably 6 months ago, I didn't even really know who Nelson Mandela was. So no, I don't have any
that makes
background.
Me look like the biggest asshole.
I don't have any background before the crazy stuff started coming out. So I can't really weigh in on the origin story of the Mandela Effect.
Honestly, I don't know how he died even 4 years ago, when he was just on a Batman movie 2 years ago.
Was he really?
He was the guy that looks at the TV screens and invents the cars and stuff like that.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Morgan Freeman?
I'm definitely thinking of Morgan Freeman.
And now, who's the racist?
That was a joke. I remember when Nelson Mandela died, everyone, a bunch of people posted all these dumb things on Facebook, like, oh no, Morgan Freeman died, I liked him in this movie, and blah, blah, blah.
On that note, do you remember, and I kind of do, and have had to process this a little bit in finding out otherwise, I seem to remember Billy Graham dying.
I don't know that I do. I have to look into that every 6 months because I always think of him as being dead already. So
yeah, I
do remember him dying.
I don't remember who was talking to me about it. It was probably Kayla, my wife, saying something about Billy Graham doing such and such. And I was like, isn't Billy Graham dead? Didn't he die 3 or 4 years ago?
Maybe he just completely turned over his ministry or whatever to his son 3 or 4 years ago.
It could be, but I could have sworn I remembered him dying.
Like I said, maybe.
And a lot of people do.
Well, like I said, I have to look this up anytime I think about Billy Graham just to make sure he's still alive. So,
yeah. But is it
Maybe
because
that's
you
just
know
the fact
that he's
he's
ancient?
110 years old. Yeah.
He's actually 98, so you're only 12 years off.
Close enough. Once you hit 95, it doesn't even matter. Numbers don't even count.
You're hard on the racism and ageism today, aren't you? My potential future sponsor / personal endorsement for today is a liberty-centric podcast that does a fantastic job at breaking down political issues in an informative and always entertaining way, the Lions of Liberty podcast. Every week, the Lions of Liberty podcast delivers 3 great shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with interviews with relevant and innovative guests, comedic looks at current events, and dissecting the broken criminal justice system. The Lions of Liberty podcast played a big part in personally getting me into the liberty movement and politics in general, and I have scarcely missed an episode since. Their Monday host, Mark Clare, even assisted me in the creation of the System is Down podcast, but don't hold it against him. Head over to lionsofliberty.com and get a dose of education, entertainment, and all-around fun. Again, that's lionsofliberty.com. Check them out. Let's talk about the JFK assassination. How many seats do you remember being in that car? How many people were in the car? I can make it multiple choice if you don't remember.
I know. I can think of 4, because there was the driver, the guy that got shot, supposedly by the magic bullet, JFK, and his wife.
I thought you were going to say the guy that got shot, JFK.
Yeah, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
No, his bodyguard or whoever it was. No, it was like a congressman or something sitting in the front seat.
Have you looked into this at all? Right now, there's photographic evidence that there were 6 cars. There were 2 people in the middle, which makes
6 seats?
6 seats, 2 people in the middle, and Jackie and John in the back.
What?
Yep.
No, there wasn't.
Exactly.
I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know this, but
Actually, this is one that there is photographic evidence of 4 and 6, which
yeah,
makes no sense at all.
Right now, I'm looking at 4. So, hang on. Let me look up 6 seats.
Well,
JFK
if you
6-seater.
put
Wow,
in-
that pops up right
if
away.
you put in JFK assassination for me on Google Images, the first thing that comes up is a 6-seater.
I just typed in JFK car, and it came up 4-seater, the first.
There's quite a few pictures of the whole car, and there's 6.
The heck? How have I not heard of this one? Because I look a lot into JFK. And that's mind-blowing. So, what's the story behind this? Tell me. Enlighten me. Holy, what the heck?
I could enlighten you if I had a reasonable explanation for it. I have no idea. And as soon as I heard about this one, sadly, the first thing I thought of was on the Family Guy episode where they reenact the JFK assassination with Mayor McCheese from McDonald's. And I looked into that. There's 4 people in the seats there. There's 4 seats. And I did watch a video where a guy was questioning this, and I think he called his mom, who was very elderly, and she still had the Times magazine of when it happened. He said that he was talking to his mom on the phone, and he asked her how many seats were there, and she counted them, and there were 4. And then he told her to bring it over to his house. When she got to his house, there were 6 in the picture.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
This is absurd. This is absurdity.
I mean,
really?
A very hard skeptic could say that old lady's crazy and she counted wrong, which could theoretically disprove it, but it's just weird. Everybody remembers it as 4.
Well, this says some claim that the car JFK rode in Dallas has 4 seats, not 6. Like, more people believe that there's 6 apparently than 4, but I have never seen this in my life.
No, I know.
Never even heard this question in my life. Now, I really wish you would have brought this up before we hit the record button.
The problem with all these...
I'm intrigued. Yeah, very intrigued.
The problem with all these is that you can't do anything about it. Like, it is what it is, and there's evidence of both, which doesn't make any sense. But what do you do with that information other than live your life in paranoia? So we can come back to that if you want to scroll a little bit. But you know the homophobic restaurant Chick-fil-A?
I like their chicken. That make them hope. Are they actually indeed homophobic?
I love their chicken. No, there was the big scandal where
Yeah,
a
I
Christian
remember that.
company had a problem with homosexuals, which should not be that big of a surprise, but that's another discussion. Whatever, who cares? They make good chicken. Do you know how to spell Chick-fil-A without looking?
It's CHICFILA.
It's CHICKFILA.
Yeah, I that was my second guess because
Well, yeah.
I mean,
But why is
ju-
everybody's first inclination to assume that it's CHIC?
I don't know. I can think of my reasoning for my first inclination, but that's just absurd. I actually had to write the word Chick-fil-A down, and I had to look up to see how to spell it because the company I work for does work for Chick-fil-A, so I had to put it on a work order.
Right.
And so I actually had to Google it to see how to spell it because I wasn't sure.
Right. I don't know. People who want to believe in the conspiracy, not excluding myself, you're going to remember it how you want to remember it. The way that is the most controversial is the more fun way to remember it sometimes.
Yeah, obviously.
And I think that's the case with a lot of them. I saw a supposed debunking theory today that I thought was compelling for the Chick-fil-A thing. And a lot of their fry boxes, they still print the logo big and the K gets cut off. And a lot of their packaging, the K gets cut off on it. It just says Chick, basically, and then it wraps around. So a lot of people have seen over and over and over again CHIC without reading the entire label, wrapping it around because they don't really care. It's just been subliminally in the back of their mind because they keep seeing CHIC because the K gets cut off. I think that's certainly a possibility. I also think that if you weren't paying attention and you heard the name Chick-fil-A over and over again for years, you might think filet is spelled like filet instead of
You would think so,
F-I-L-A. So,
yeah, I've never really heard this as a Mandela Effect, but I could see it because, like I said, I couldn't remember, honestly, but I don't think that there's ever been a point where I'm just like, no, I definitely remember it spelled like that. I just didn't really care, I don't think.
well, let's get into some more. I want to keep this episode fairly short because it's all conjecture, and some people don't care to listen to us saying, I remember it, I don't remember it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to burn through a couple of these and get your thoughts on them because you haven't looked into it quite as much, which is fun too. Just get your first reaction to some of these. They're very interesting.
Yeah.
In the movie Forrest Gump, what is the line that he says about a box of chocolates?
See, I actually know this one because I think it's just been misquoted over and over and over through the years. They say, my mom always said life is like a box of chocolates.
Right.
You never know what you're going to get, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's not the quote. I know that. I can't think of what it is.
It's
off the
life
top of my
was
head.
like a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
It's past tense. And his mom's dead, so that would make sense.
Yeah. I think that one was just misquoted. It's still being quoted for memes and stuff like that. And
Right.
over and over and over. I think it just got, like the game of telephone, over the years it just got misquoted to the point where I think more people have heard other people quote it than
they've
actually
actually
who
watched
have
the
seen the
movie,
movie. Yeah, most of the people who have heard that quote probably couldn't even tell you it's from Forrest Gump. And if they did, they probably couldn't tell you what Forrest Gump was. So
Right. I would say that I absolutely agree. I very, very much remember life is like a box of chocolates. However, I have never seen the movie all the way through. So I betting that that's probably a lot of people's position on the case. Also, at the end of the movie, his mom says, like, it's a flashback, and his mom says life is like a box of chocolates or something to that effect, but she says is. It makes more sense.
two and two together.
Yeah, it makes more sense to remember it in that way because if you're saying it to somebody, life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Like, it makes sense for Forrest to have said it in the past tense because he's talking about his mom in the past tense, and it makes sense for her to say it in present tense, and when people quote it and apply it to life, it makes plenty of sense for them to say it in present tense because they're not talking about their mom.
I never actually watched the movie until early 20s, so probably 10, 15 years after it came out. So by the time I saw the movie, I've heard that quote so many times, probably quoted wrong, that when I actually watched the movie, my brain probably
You just gloss
heard
over it.
Yeah, my brain probably heard it the way that everyone said it was.
Right.
And so even if I did think it was said that way, it was probably because that's what my brain thought it said before I ever even watched the movie. So.
Right. On the same topic of that, like people just repeating the lines over and over and over again, do you know about the Darth Vader deal? Let me preface by saying,
Yeah,
for those that don't know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've got basically a half sleeve of R2D2 on my left arm, and one of these theories says something about Star Wars. Craig, do you know what it is?
Yes, I know what it is, and it's definitely false because I know this line by heart because I've seen it 100 million times. The theory is that because everyone's T-shirts and all the screen printing BS and all the fan art and stuff says, Luke, I am your father.
Yes.
That is completely 100% inaccurate because the actual line is Darth Vader says, Obi-Wan never told you about your father. And Luke says, he told me enough. He told me you killed him. Darth Vader's response is, no, I am your father. There's never once said, Luke, I am your father.
But you can't put no, I am your father on a freaking t-shirt and have it sell.
Exactly. And
the people that have the biggest issue with these things, no offense, but you probably didn't watch it when you were 5 or whatever. You probably haven't watched it
nearly as much as I've watched it.
Yeah. My wife definitely remembers it being Luke, I'm your father. However, she probably didn't even watch that movie. Like, she watched it as a kid once with her parents, I know for a fact. Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure she didn't watch it again until I made her watch it 4 or 5 years ago. And in between then, Facebook has, there's been a million things saying, Luke, I am your father, because that's the only way to present that as a marketable line. And there's even video of James Earl Jones in interviews, like this is used as evidence. James Earl Jones in interviews saying, yeah, when I said, Luke, I am your father, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that makes sense because he's talking to Luke. And I absolutely remember it as no, I am your father. And I've seen the movie a million times and do not remember it the other way ever whatsoever.
I think another issue could be the toys and the toy franchise that came out of it. There was a lot of commercials during that time that probably did say, Luke, I am your father. Or there was probably a
toy that said
interactive toy that, you pushed a button and it said, Luke, I am your father, because it made more sense than having this full-blown conversation between the two toys. Like, who knows, maybe I don't have the Luke Skywalker toy that says, he told me you kill him.
Absolutely. Another one that I think falls into the same category, but I'm on the other side of it. You know the movie Silence of the Lambs?
I love the movie. I haven't seen it enough like Star Wars to actually quote or misquote it, so
I'm in the same boat. Where she first walks into she walks up to the bars of his cell, and he says, "Hello, Clarice."
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. That never happened.
No, I don't know why, but for some reason, maybe I am the one who hears the Darth Vader quote wrong, but I do hear it in my head. I do hear "Hello, Clarice" because I know what his voice sounds like, and it's kind of like James Earl Jones' voice. You like, for some reason I do hear him saying that in my head, and I have said that a lot to people before.
I know. I am the same way. That one gets me. Like, I absolutely remember it one way, but as you said, I have not seen that movie a million times like I have Empire Strikes Back, so maybe I'm wrong. I will accept the fact that I could very well be wrong, and logically, I am wrong. My biggest issue with him not saying "Hello, Clarice" is that the chilling thing about that scene is that she walks in and he says "Hello, Clarice" before she introduces herself, before they talk at all. And so it makes it eerie and creepy that he did that without really having any conversation with her. There is a scene at the end of the movie where there's a phone call and she goes and picks up the phone and he says, "Well, Clarice," on the phone. And supposedly, some people think that people put those two things together, like because of his accent, you might interpret it as "Hello, Clarice," or whatever, or you just hear it that way because it's creepy at that point too. He has some creepy statement about lambs and stuff. Problem though is that I do absolutely remember it the other way.
So, what was the exact line he said
at the end of the movie?
No, at the beginning. When he first meets her, what is it that he says in the movie?
Supposedly he says just "Good morning."
So he doesn't even say Clarice?
No, he doesn't even say her name.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that.
I know. That's the problem with this. Is that it's all memory. In the movie Dirty Harry, which you probably haven't seen, here's a good example, though, of the possibility that all of this is just misquotes the entire time. The movie with Clint Eastwood, where he says, do you feel lucky, punk? You know that line, right? Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Now he says, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
What?
Yeah. But we've never seen it. But we still have a passionate opinion on what's true and what's not, even though we've never seen the freaking movie.
Huh. Yeah.
The line from Jaws about a bigger boat. What is it?
I don't know. I haven't seen that movie. You got to pick better movies, apparently.
We've heard we're going to need a bigger boat, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well now it's you're going to need a bigger boat, which still makes sense in context of the movie, but doesn't make sense because we've heard it one way a million times.
Mm-hmm. Here's a couple, and these get away from movies. Yeah. How do you spell Oscar Mayer?
Right now it's Mayer. I know, but
I do remember that for some reason.
You do remember A?
No, I remember E.
I do remember E too. Meyer, spelled with an A,
is Mayer.
Is Mayer, yes. It's kind of the same as Bernstein. If it was Mayer, like why would our brain initially think Meyer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, here's a couple more.
I've seen all of them.
I know, but they're all blowing my mind. These ones that I'm looking at, like the movie ones, don't get me so much because I haven't seen some of them, and some of them I've debunked myself. Sex in the City.
Sex and the City?
I don't remember that. I've never watched the show.
I know for a fact it was Sex in the City because it was a weird name.
I thought so too.
I also never watched it, so people who are debunkers can certainly call us out on this because we don't really have a valid opinion other than the fact that we saw commercials on TV every single week about Sex in the City. So,
what's the first line of the Mr. Rogers theme song?
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. No, I know all of these. I know. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It's not. I don't, like, I'm not buying it. Like, it says, this one here says, during the Mr. Rogers neighborhood intro, he'd sing a little jingle that people remember as It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is how I remember it. I watched the show a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Instead, he clearly states, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. And that doesn't even sound like, it sounds like you'd mush that up on your tongue just trying to sing that.
Right. There's one that, Interview with a Vampire or The Vampire. Have you heard that one?
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, my biggest issue with that one, well, I have a couple issues with it. When I first looked into the Mandela Effect, when I saw that it was Interview with the Vampire, which is what it is now, right? Mm-hmm. When I saw that it was that, I was like, no, that's absolutely wrong. It was Interview with a Vampire. I absolutely remember that. And then people play clips of interviews with Tom Cruise where he's talking about the movie and he says Interview with a Vampire. The problem with that is Interview with the Vampire could be either one because with ends with TH and is the end of the. So it could be Interview with the Vampire. Nobody pauses before the. It could be Interview with the or it could be Interview with a Vampire. It sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
Now, my other issue with that one is today when I was looking into this stuff, I was thinking about Interview with the Vampire, Interview with a Vampire. I had to stop and think about which one it is because I've heard it both ways so much now. I was thinking that it was Interview with the Vampire, and I was coming up with reasons for why I thought it was that. And then I looked into the Mandela Effect on that and realized that I was thinking the way that everybody's saying is wrong now, even though I was thinking the other way before.
According to this is the.
Yeah, the is now, right?
Okay, yeah, and the is the right way.
Right.
So you just have no idea what it is.
Exactly.
Your brain just has no clue.
Because I've been looking into it so much, my brain flipped it, and, well, you can take that two ways. If you're a skeptic, you can take it as, obviously, my brain is not trustworthy because I changed it on my own. Or you can take it as whoever the powers that be are that are doing this, who are changing our thoughts and changing our history. It worked because I couldn't remember.
Let's get into the super crazy side. Besides just, hey, our brains are making memories that didn't actually exist. What would be the other explanation? Like we've talked about possible brain manipulation, but why? Why would the government put so much effort into change. I mean, they'd have to go on an entire, just a trip down the rabbit hole just to find every instance that this occurred on the internet and change every one of them. Like,
Right.
why would they go through that much effort just to change our brains thinking a little bit and make us think we're absolutely insane?
Well, if we're going on the crazy side, again, this could be taken multiple ways. Okay, you take my words however you want. I'm sorry if I offend somebody, but the ultra-religious conspiracy crazy people take it as it's being changed and pointing things in a direction that is darker and more evil, which we can get into some of those things in a minute. Others, like you said earlier, it's just kind of a test to see what we will accept. Did you ever watch the movie The Forgotten?
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
With the woman who has her kid taken away. Like, her kid is taken away by aliens, and they are testing the fabric of her motherhood, and if her brain will let that thing go and accept it as accept
and they
that
like
it's crazy.
changed
Like everybody else,
like everything about her.
right? Nobody else believes that she had a kid, or nobody else remembers that she had a kid, but she does the entire time through. And you could take it that way, as they're testing to see what they can do, what they can change, what history they can alter that our brains will accept, and the collective consciousness will just say, yeah, obviously it's this, and anybody who thinks otherwise is crazy.
Yeah. What would the end game of that be? Like, really, what would the end game of that be? Yeah.
It depends on what they're planning.
We make somebody believe that the spelling of Chick-fil-A is different from what they've known all their life, and everyone buys into it. What's the end game of that? Like, I get that we have no freaking clue, but in your opinion, where does that lead to? What does
Don't put this on me. I would say that if you believe all that stuff, that maybe they're changing things and trying to remove some of our history that is important, which could be religious, it could be political, it could be anything that is taking away some of our foundation that leads us to believe that certain inalienable truths are truth. Like, who knows? Maybe they're trying to take away freedoms so that we are squashed and we can have New World Order or whatever. Maybe they're trying to take away religion or Christianity or Christ or whatever. It just depends on which angle you tackle it from. And I don't necessarily subscribe to any of them, but it's very interesting either way.
I guess you could go clear into, hey, this terrorist attack happened this way, and this is how this certain building fell,
Right.
and then everybody else is like, no, that's not what happened at all, because that would prove that
Nobody knows what you're
somehow
talking about right now.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody that's listening to
Exactly.
this knows exactly what you're talking about right
Exactly. Well, let's get straight to the point. Let's say, for example,
now. Building 7.
Building 7 fell, or these towers fell at the speed of gravity, which would be impossible for something that just like fell due to something smashing into it. Let's say all of a sudden everybody remembers, no, there was only 2 buildings, which right now, honestly, not too many people know about Building 7.
Even right after, everybody just ignored the fact that we're not going to get into this. This is another episode altogether. But everybody ignored
I'm
the
just
fact
saying.
that they were announcing that Building 7 fell, and in the background, you saw it standing, and then it fell 2 minutes later.
And to be 100% honest with you, I didn't know about it till about 3 months ago when I texted you and said,
I know.
how the heck did Building 7 fall?
And that's what, 12 years later or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that alone is just completely broadsiding the official story.
Yeah.
And so if we can get people to not buy into something like that, that's huge. So I guarantee you, if I didn't remember it, there's a lot of people that don't look into anything that completely don't remember it. Just that alone is the media's way of, I think it's almost the same thing. It's
conditioning.
Yeah, it's manipulating our memory of how things actually lined up. Well, this happened, and that's how the towers fell. Let's negate the fact that a whole nother building fell that never got touched. I mean, if we don't remember that, then that changes the entire facts of what happened. So
Right.
if we can change a little thing, we can probably eventually work up to a big thing. And I think Building 7 does kind of point out that that does work.
And we will absolutely get into that more in the fast approaching 9/11 episode, I'm sure. Let's get into a couple more theories here. Have you looked into any of the scriptural ones? Like, do you know what lays down with the lamb biblically? The what shall lay down with the lamb?
I'm guessing it's wrong because of the topic the subject we're talking about, but I'm gonna go with the lion lays down with the lamb.
Wrong.
Okay, that's what I thought your answer would be, but that's what I remember.
The wolf shall lay down with the lamb. Do you remember that?
What translation is that?
All of them.
That's not possible.
And there's so many images online and everywhere of the lion laying down with the lamb. And I have heard Christians try to debunk this one and say, because it does talk about the lion eating grass or whatever in the next passage. I don't know. I'm not a biblical theologian or anything, so I can't say for sure what it was originally, but I know that maybe it's the same as the Darth Vader thing, but all along I've heard it one way, and now it's not that way. Maybe that's just poor doctrine being taught.
Yeah. People go into use the description of the lion and the lamb as a dual description of Jesus being like strong lion and then like the lamb sacrifice and whatever. So maybe there's the mixing of that analogy and then this scripture. But yeah, I've never heard somebody say the wolf shall lie down with the lamb. It's always been.
So it asks the question, has it been changed? Or is every single person who has ever taught that sermon just wrong and didn't read the passage for what it is?
So that one's almost as mind-boggling as the JFK with 6 seats.
Yep.
Only that one holds more implication to me. I mean, even though it's just another big animal that's dangerous lying down with a supposedly gentle animal.
I mean, you look at the passages of the devil is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and then they changed the lion. I mean, often the lion symbolizes God, and often the wolf in sheep's clothing symbolizes Satan or the devil or Lucifer or whatever. And it's been replaced with, I mean, if we are the flock, God's flock, whatever, we are represented as sheep, it's changing. God will lay down with the sheep to the enemy.
The devil will lay down with the sheep. Yeah.
Which it takes a weird turn there.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, can you recite for me the Lord's Prayer?
Is that the now I lay me down to sleep one?
It is not. On that note, can we talk real quick about how horrifying that prayer is for little children to learn? Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. How horrifying is that? Well, Dear God, if I die in my sleep tonight from some inexplicable cause, if somebody breaks in and murders me brutally in my sleep, please take my soul.
Well, that's probably written back in times when, hey, dying in your sleep was a little more common.
If I die from hunger in my sleep.
Exactly. Anyway, back to the Lord's Prayer.
Craig, can you recite for me the Lord's Prayer real quick? And just know, I'm sure you've already accepted this, but just know for a fact that you're probably wrong.
Apparently, everything I thought about life is wrong. So
otherwise, I probably wouldn't be bringing it up right now.
Exactly. I'm going to start out with Our Father who art in heaven.
That's the one.
Is that right so far?
You're good. Keep going.
Hallowed be thy name. Are we going KJV or?
KJV. Let's go KJV.
All right. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. On earth as it is in heaven.
Now.
I was waiting for you to stop me because I knew it wasn't going to take too long.
Yep. What if I told you that the KJV now reads, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven?
I think I've read that recently. I think I heard somebody say that. I'm like, that's not right. And then I looked it up and it was right. So.
Well, that one I personally find creepy if we're looking at this in a crazy manner and a religious manner. Like if you're thinking of it from the standpoint of somebody's changing something to alter our thoughts about God, in earth as opposed to on earth could mean below earth, which some would say is where hell is, and that type of thing.
Okay, so I'm going to look up the NIV version because I do have NRSV pulled up, but it definitely does say on earth as it is in heaven. Because I know I learned the Bible in NIV because apparently that's the real evangelical way to read the Bible. Here is the NIV version. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that's why I would remember it as on earth, is because I read the Bible in NIV as a kid, and even now my Bibles are all NIV.
While here's another one in that same passage. Skip down to verse 12 and let me know what that is.
In the New International Version, it says, "And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors."
A lot of people are arguing that it was trespasses and trespassers, or those who trespass against us. An issue with that is, duh. Like, I personally remember it both ways. I don't think that one is a deal breaker for me.
I do too. I assumed that was a translation, but KJV also says debts and debtors. I assumed the KJV was transgressors and transgressions, but there's got to be a translation that says that.
One evidence that people have used is Melania Trump on Inauguration Day. She read the Lord's Prayer, and she read it on earth as it is in heaven, and she read it trespassers as those who trespass against us, or whatever.
Where did she read that?
That's a good question. We should ask her. She's probably got the original.
Looking up in the great source of Wikipedia, which is my go-to,
which is infallible.
Which is, it's
the infallible word of the internet.
More truth than the Bible itself, apparently, because everything I knew about the Bible is completely BS at this point, apparently. Please stand for the reading of Wikipedia. All right, so this says, though Matthew 6:12 uses the term debt, the older English version of the Lord's Prayer uses the term trespasses, while ecumenical versions often use the term sins. So it's not really a biblical thing. It's a tradition that was picked up in the Lord's Prayer. So like the Catholics or Methodist churches that go into like traditional readings or the traditional quoting of scripture or quoting of certain prayers. Back in the early, I'd say, it says 1920 Episcopal and current Catholic without doxology. So this is very traditional reading of a prayer. It's kind of like quoting the Hail Mary and stuff like that. Traditional prayers, they actually use, give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass. 1662 Anglican, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass us. So this prayer itself that was taken from the Bible has itself been written or retranslated and used in traditional readings or traditional ceremonial quoting and stuff like that. So what people know to be the Lord's Prayer isn't actually what is written in the traditional Bible. It has been kind of changed around and reworded itself.
Right. That one I think is nothing. I think it's just a translation. I don't want to get too much into the biblical stuff because that is going to require some extra research, point in case the discussion that we just had. So to kind of wrap this up, I'd like to do a speed round, maybe going through one of these lists and just seeing what you remember and what you don't remember.
All right.
A lot of people think that the Monopoly man had a monocle. Do you remember him having a monocle?
I do. I remember the monocle, but I don't know. Like I said, that could be something because I didn't play a lot of Monopoly, so that could have been like printed on like T-shirts.
I don't. I think that might be attributed to Mr. Peanut because he's wearing a top hat, and so you assume he has a monocle.
Really?
Curious George, did he have a tail or did he not?
See, I just think he did have a tail because why wouldn't he have a freaking tail?
Yes.
He's a freaking monkey.
Yes.
I mean,
if you stop to think about it without looking at it, you would assume that he had a tail. I don't remember him having a tail, actually.
Why wouldn't he have a tail?
I don't know, but I don't remember him having a tail. Do you think that C-3PO from Star Wars was all gold?
On the originals?
Yep.
I'd have to say yes.
So you haven't looked into this one at all?
I've seen it. I haven't looked in it because I don't want to just completely blow my mind.
One of his legs is silver. Look it up.
Let me look it up real quick so I can tell you that's insanity. What? And it's his foot too.
In some pictures.
A whole quarter of his body is silver. At least an eighth. In the very least, an eighth of his body was silver.
I've gone back. I've watched the footage. It's there. Never noticed it before. Or it wasn't real before. There's also other action figures, one of which I have, where he's all gold. I don't know.
An old, like, 70s action figure?
Yes.
Because I could see them just dipping it in gold paint.
Yep.
But that being said, I've seen these... Again, we've seen the Star Wars movies at least 12,000 times. So how do you miss something that blatant?
Yeah. A majority of the old action figures have them as all gold, which could have been just a convenience thing. Doesn't change the fact that I absolutely remember it one way, and it apparently was not that way. The Kit Kat bar, does it have a dash in between, or does it not?
I want to say yes.
You'd be wrong.
It does, but I'm guessing that's probably wrong.
And I think that's kind of the weirdest part about this, is that, like, I've looked in depth into it and watched them side by side, or looked at them side by side, and it's like, yeah, well, it's that. I thought it was that. I guess it's not. And then after looking at it without for so long, you forget what you thought it was. So it's fun to ask somebody who hasn't looked too in depth into these things. Is there a such thing as Jiffy peanut butter?
See, I read this one, and I've always thought, even as a kid, everyone said Jiffy peanut butter, and I'm just like, you are freaking wrong, because I've never can find a can in the store that says Jiffy. It's always been Jif, because I remember that as a child being like, why did they call this Jiffy? It's just Jif.
Right.
And so that one is just, people don't remember Jiffy. That's just what people called it.
Yeah,
I think there's probably cartoons or something that actually had Jiffy peanut butter in it or something. Or
there's a conspiratory side of me that thinks that there's a lot of programming going on in a lot of the, especially adult cartoons, but a lot of cartoons in general and a lot of movies in general. There's an episode of American Dad where there was a picture of Steve looking at a can of Jiffy peanut butter, and he takes his magnifying glass and puts it on it, and it has a triangle with a peanut in the middle, which is kind of Illuminati leaning and can certainly point people in that direction. And actually, with the Berenstain Bears, there's an episode of The Simpsons where they're looking at a book and it says Berenstein with an EIN. But a lot of these cartoons and stuff, if you lean toward the crazy stuff, there you can find a lot of symbolism in it, and it's kind of compelling. I don't really have a hard stance on Jif or Jiffy. I do remember people saying Jiffy, but I also remember people saying Nutty Buddy, and it was always Nutter Butter.
I was actually thinking that in my head. That was the next thing I was going to bring up, that everyone says Nutty Buddy, which...
It's just what they called it because it's a happier word to say.
I think that's a mix between the Nutter Butter and then Little Debbie's and Little Debbie's Nutty Bar. I think people are putting the two of those together, the Nutty Bar and the Nutter Butter.
Yeah.
There is a show, I don't remember the show or movie, it says, how about a pack of Nutty Buddies?
I remember what it was. I think it was one of the Aladdin movies, because I was thinking about that too.
Maybe that was it.
When Genie turns into like a hillbilly and he says, how about a pack of Nutty Buddy? And he
there you go.
Belly bumps somebody. The other problem with this whole Mandela Effect thing is there might be, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they are altering our memories. Sure, whatever. Let's say there's 5 things right now that they altered our memories on. And now we're forcing all these other things in with it because we remember it incorrectly. So it's not really making it more legit because people can disprove a lot of these things. Betty White, is she alive or dead?
Betty White is alive.
Yes, and I feel the same way. Apparently some people disagree. I wonder how Betty White feels about that.
Yeah.
Do you know the creator of Charlie Brown or Peanuts?
Yes.
Do you know his name?
Charles M. Schultz.
Right. Do you know how to spell his last name?
Schultz.
There's no T anymore.
At the end? What?
There's no T anymore.
That's not true.
continuing on with our very slow lightning round here. On which Thursday of the month of November is Thanksgiving?
I think the 3rd.
It's the 4th. Apparently,
There's
since 1941, it has always been the 4th Thursday.
So, I want to say there's something to this.
Probably is, and I don't have time to fact check it, so I'm just going to assume it's fact.
Yes, I've always been under the impression that it was the 3rd Thursday.
Yep, all the more reason to think that maybe we're all wrong.
So, my thinking, where the direction it could go, which isn't necessarily my personal opinion, but the direction it could go is possibly they're throwing out all this masked stuff like this on the Mandela Effect just to throw us off on the actual stuff that has been changed,
right,
to make it invalid, to disprove it. Like
controlled opposition, like on the political stuff, if you're talking about like Mark Dice or Alex Jones, stuff like that, a lot of people would argue, and I could very well be one of them, would argue that these are people who are presenting contrarian opinions and opposition to mainstream thinking, but then they present themselves as crazy people so that it will lead people off the trail. And if you look into conspiracies on YouTube, if you even try, there's so many contradictory arguments on so many things that the average person is just going to go, it's all crazy. You're all wrong. Obviously.
Yeah.
You can't possibly be right. Nothing can be. And the mainstream media is correct. And that's kind of a problem. Would you disagree that I keep bringing things up to you and for a long time you're like, no, don't want to deal with it because, I mean, there's so freaking many things that if you look into it, you got to look into it all, and then you got to weigh all of it, and it's too much to even process, really. And even for me, I've gotten to so many points where I'm like, I think this might be the case. I think this might be the case. I think this might be the case. And then this contradicts all of that. I'm like, well, I'll throw it all out. Whatever. I don't even want to think about it right now. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to look into all these things.
To call it a rabbit hole is just an under-exaggeration because it's like
it's a rabbit maze.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a maze, and you hit dead ends a lot of times. And if you do try to find your way around one, you hit another, and you start following that one, you hit a dead end or something that's completely illogical or impossible. And it is easier to just be the sheep and just follow whatever they tell you to.
And people like Nathan, on the topic of conspiracies, that is the general mindset. He said, maybe some things are true, but if they are true, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
That is the general consensus from everybody. Like, let's look at the most obvious central, like it's been proven conspiracy. Maybe, not even maybe, the government is spying on you. What are you going to do about it? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're probably not going to do anything because you think that you have no ability to do anything about it. The absolute least we can do is talk about it, make people aware of it, and maybe they start covering up the cameras on their computers or muting their microphones on their laptops and stuff like that. I would say that the end goal is get people outraged that this stuff is absolutely happening. Not necessarily Mandela Effect, but there is a lot of conspiracy stuff happening that is not theory anymore. It's been proven. If we are not outraged about it, there's nothing that we can do about it. But if we are, and if we are as a collective, because as a collective, we have come to the conclusion that the government has our best interest in mind, if we can change that collective mindset, maybe we could do something about it. I don't know. Maybe we could revolt and make something happen.
I think the end-all goal right now for government or the powers above or whoever you want to say is just to divide, because you're talking getting collectively, well, even the two-party system alone or the media, the two-party media even, there is no goal of getting people on the same page. The goal is 100% to get people on opposite ends and polarized on opposite ends of the spectrum so nobody agrees with anybody. Because if you divide us all up, I mean, if nobody agrees with anybody, nobody's going to go against this. Nobody's going to actually go against the government when they can't get along with each other. It's the whole divide and conquer theory. Like, you get them all split up and you can get them to pretty much do whatever you want, because nobody's going to be able to form a group or a combined force to make any changes So I think the overall goal in any scenario that the government might have their hands in would just be to mix us up and to divide us up.
The government or the hierarchy, whatever it may be. Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think that that is the case, and you and I will certainly be discussing that more as soon as we stop record on this, because that's another podcast altogether. But yeah, on this topic, there's just so many things. It could be taken as a psyop, a distraction, whatever. I think that could be the case. I don't know. I'm interested either way. I think that it is a very interesting topic to dive into, and the whole point of this series is that I have a lot of people asking me about different topics, and I've had the same discussions over and over again, and it's hard to regurgitate all the information every single time. So maybe we can have these discussions, record them, put them out there, and if somebody asks a question, be like, hey, listen to this. It's got all the stuff out there, and all the stuff that I thought at that point, at least, and you can go listen to that, and then we can have a discussion then after that, because most conspiracy discussions, because of all these psyops or controlled opposition, stuff like that, you can't really dive deep into the depths of the rabbit hole, because you got to start at square one. If they don't know, or if they don't realize that there is a possibility of control of government, or like even from a political standpoint, that the government is not working for you. Like, there's so many people, the vast majority of people are square one. Like, the government is for you. They are working in your best interest, and you should trust the government. If you can't get past that, there's no reason in talking about mind manipulation or anything else, anything any deeper. You got to start somewhere, and I think that's a big point of all of this, is getting those thoughts and conversations out there so we can have further in-depth conversations and possibly do something more with it.
So, in your opinion, after all this, Mandela Effect, yes or no?
It's like there's a door on the Mandela Effect that, in my mind, is almost closed, and then Berenstain Bears keeps propping it open. And
that's the only one.
I can't quite get past that one, and that's the one that keeps coming up.
All the rest of them, I can say, nah, that might have been wrong, or that might have been right. I don't. Berenstain Bears was spelled with a freaking E. I just know it was.
It should be called the Berenstain Effect, because that's really what everybody knows, what everybody remembers. That is certainly the one that bugs me. Even if I wrote everything else off, that one still bugs me. Problem is, memories are not evidence and never will be evidence, so we can't argue with other people's memories. Did you have any closing thoughts or anything?
No, not really. I think we said basically all of it. I would hate to be in a world where any of this could possibly be true. So
absolutely. But all in all, I think that the majority of the Mandela Effect is probably infactual and could probably be debunked. And I am a conspiracy guy, so take that for what it is. I am not learned or a scientist or a biblical theologian or anything, but I'm sure we will get into this more in future episodes, and I'm sure I will have you back on at that time. So, Craig, thanks for being here and giving your unknowledged opinion in addition to my own. And I hope we can do this again. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But yeah, until next time, question everything and stay uncomfortable. This is The System is Down, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey guys, thanks for listening. I was planning on that being a much shorter episode, but we were enjoying the discussion so much, we just couldn't cut it off. I hope you enjoyed it as much or more than we did. If not, there's always next week. In the meantime, be sure to go subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, like our page on Facebook, and join our forum discussion at tsidpod.com/forum. Do that, and I'll be back for some more delightful discomfort for you next Monday. Until then, question stuff and stay uncomfy. Thanks a lot. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.